Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're really pleased to see you all and have a discussion this morning about the priorities of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities for this legislative session. A couple of housekeeping notes. First off, this is being recorded. And so that I think will be available as well later for you. And then also too, we're happy to take some questions here at the end. You can indicate your interest either through raising your hand in the Zoom functions or using the chat. And then my colleague Kelly, who is monitoring all of these things, will call on you. Let's get started here. I have with me a couple of very fine and experienced leaders from Greater Minnesota. First off, Mayor Brian Holmer from the city of Thief River Falls. He's the mayor there, and also this year the president of the CGMC. I also have Mayor Shelley Jonas from the city of Annandale, as well as Waite Park City Administrator Shauna Johnson. And you'll hear more from them here in just a moment about some of our particulars. But getting right down to it, last month's announcement of the state's historic $17.6 billion budget surplus has provided the legislature and the governor with a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make critical investments to address pressing needs across the state. For cities in Greater Minnesota, that means investing in programs and priorities such as local government aid, a robust bonding bill that addresses needs such as water, wastewater, transportation, and items like that, as well as our needs around workforce development and supporting that workforce through childcare and housing. And then finally, at the end, we're going to talk about a new issue on the labor and employment front related to cities, and that is the issue of duty disability claims and the impact that they're having on cities in rural Minnesota. So we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm very happy to have these three fine city leaders with me today to do so. As I'm sure you are going to not be surprised, our top priority this year is going to be local government aid. As you know, CGMC has been at the forefront of protecting, defending, enhancing, fighting for this program throughout its history. And if you ask any leader in Greater Minnesota, any city leader in Greater Minnesota, they'll be able to tell you just how important it is to maintain the viability of their community and to ensure that it will thrive into the future. Couple of things that we're doing on the LGA front this year. Last year, we started work in conjunction with some of the other stakeholders on some updates to the LGA formula. This was last done in 2013, and so we thought it was time to look under the hood again and do some work on updating the formula because of the passage of time, the new census data, all of that sort of thing. And so we'll be coming to the legislature with our partners in the city community with some updates that were actually worked out last year with the help of legislators and which actually were in the House tax bill last year. To support that, the other thing that we're gunning for is a $105 million increase in local government aid. It's been a while since there has been a significant increase in LGA. As you know, inflation is not only hitting individuals and families, but it's also impacting city budgets. Everything from salaries to healthcare benefits to the gas that goes in the police car, the materials that are used to maintain the parks and other infrastructure, all of those costs are going up, and LGA will be critical in helping to restrain those costs going forward. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Mayor Brian Holmer, who's going to talk about LGA from the Thief River Falls perspective. Mayor Holmer?
Thanks, Bradley. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Holmer, Mayor of Thief River Falls and President of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. Local government aid means everything to the health of Greater Minnesota cities. It means being able to afford the basic services to our residents like police, fire, sidewalks, well-maintained streets. It enables us to provide the kind of quality of life that our residents want and deserve with amenities like parks, libraries, swimming pools, and arenas. In Thief River Falls, LGA makes up about 10% of our annual budget. If we don't have it, our property taxes would have to increase in order to provide the services our residents and businesses rely on. One of the great things about LGA is that each city is able to base it on their unique needs. And Thief River Falls has been an economic engine for the state of Minnesota for several years now. Through the expansion of Articat and DigiKey, we are a regional center where many residents of neighboring communities travel as far as 90 miles to commute each day to work. While being blessed with the expansion in our community, we are challenged to provide the necessary public infrastructure, housing, and childcare to sustain this growth. LGA helps us pay down the infrastructure need not only to support our residents, but the surrounding communities as well. Like other cities, we've seen costs increase drastically in recent years. For example, construction costs have increased over 14% in 2022 alone. Thief River Falls, if we did not receive the LGA, private investment and resulting economic stability would likely to move to other cities and even other states. LGA is absolutely vital to Thief River Falls, Greater Minnesota, and the entire state.
Thank you, Mayor Homer. As he indicated, LGA is of crucial importance to cities across the state, large and small. It really is the foundation upon which a lot of our cities' success is built in terms of being able to provide the kind of infrastructure and services that businesses and residents rely on. In addition to things like local government aid to provide a foundation for providing services is a robust bonding bill. Last year, obviously, the legislature failed to pass a bonding bill. It was, I think, probably their biggest non-accomplishment last year. And so there are a lot of projects in the queue waiting to be funded. I'm going to talk primarily about the wastewater side of things, and then I'm going to have Mayor Jonas talk a little bit about both their experience with wastewater and transportation. But on the wastewater side of things, we're working to advance a proposal that would ask for $299 million through the Public Facilities Authority to fund their grant and loan programs. These are the programs that fund large wastewater projects, large and small, as well as drinking water, everything from the upgrading of facilities to the construction of brand new facilities, as well as the pipes that go to and fro under the ground. These are critical if we are going to keep on top of our infrastructure needs and provide safe, clean water to our communities. It's incredibly difficult for cities to pay these expenses on their own and without any kind of state assistance. And to talk a little bit about Annandale's recent water and wastewater infrastructure needs, as well as a transportation issue in their community, I've got Mayor Shelley Jonas. Mayor Jonas?
Thank you, Bradley. As he mentioned, I'm Shelley Jonas. I'm the mayor of Annandale. Annandale takes its priorities to provide reliable public infrastructure very seriously, but we need state support to protect small town residents and businesses from bearing the full brunt of these expenses. As we are all well aware, inflation has hit everyone hard. Everything has become more expensive, but water and sewer costs have grown dramatically. Thanks to the bonding bill in 2020, Annandale was finally able to replace 100-year-old clay, tile, sewer, and water lines. But we still have several more projects that have been on hold due to infrastructure costs. Kicking the can down the road is a difficult proposition, as it only increases costs and creates more complications. One of our waiting projects is a traffic roundabout that MnDOT has recommended would give access to a newly constructed senior living center. However, MnDOT is unable to participate in the cost of this improvement to our state highway. Each year we wait, costs rise. Residents are subjected to a riskier traffic scenario. In fact, just this morning, someone pulled out directly in front of me while trying to make a left-hand turn that this roundabout would eliminate. Currently, we expect the cost of the roundabout to be over $3 million, which is a lot of money for a town that is not even at 3,500 people. PFA programs and bonding programs are critical for small towns such as Annandale for our communities to keep them from falling behind. We are hopeful that the legislature will pass a bonding bill or spending bill with a significant funding for water infrastructure grants and loans to offset these projects that have been waiting across the state.
Thank you, Mayor Jonas. I think as the mayor indicated, Annandale is a small city of about 3,600 people. And I think one of the important things to note about these water and wastewater treatment programs is that unlike the metro area, we simply don't have the economies of scale We don't have the Met Council who can do these projects on a region-wide basis. Oftentimes it is left to communities themselves, small communities, to build out these facilities. And that's why state assistance is so important. One of the other things that we're doing actually on the water and wastewater infrastructure side is working with a coalition of partners to address the issue of lead pipes throughout our communities. They are all over the place, and it is imperative that we do two things. One, some mapping and inventorying just to see where they are, because in some cases the infrastructure is very old. And two, that once we identify where they are, to remove and replace them. Not only the public infrastructure, but also the part that is privately owned that goes into the house. And so we're pursuing a pretty aggressive piece of legislation that would provide $60 million per year to support this work in communities across the state. It's vitally important. There is no safe level of lead contamination for children, for people of all ages, and it needs to be taken care of to ensure the public health. So that's another thing that we're doing on the infrastructure side that I'm sure you'll hear more about here shortly. One of the other critical pieces of human infrastructure is childcare and housing. As we go around the state and talk to cities about what is holding their communities back, these are the two things that they talk about in terms of the need to build out in order to ensure that their communities can thrive. On the childcare front, we know that right now, Greater Minnesota is short more than 40,000 childcare slots. And Greater Minnesota has been losing childcare providers at a much faster rate than in the metro area. In fact, most of our providers, being sort of home care providers, are not being replaced at all. It's a critical need for cities across the state so that they can build their economies, attract workers, and thrive. Additionally, housing, workforce housing specifically, is a critical challenge to our community. And so we're going to be pursuing a number of programs on that front as well, related to helping to pay for the public infrastructure for housing development, as well as the Greater Minnesota Housing or Workforce Housing Program, which has been critical in helping our communities. There's lots and lots of needs, but luckily there are lots of resources that the state has to deploy as well. To talk a little bit more about housing and childcare, I'm going to turn it over once again to Mayor Homer from Thief River Falls. Mayor?
Thanks again, Bradley. City of Thief River Falls is experiencing a critical care shortage of housing and housing. Didke, our largest employer, has recently finished a 2.2 million square foot expansion, which will generate 1,000 new jobs. This is on top of the 3,600 jobs at Didke right now. Without quality, affordable childcare or housing, the success of the major expansion like Didke project underscores the city's challenges. A study that was completed in August by the First Children's Finance identified a shortage of 283 childcare slots in the cities of Thief River Falls, 357 in Pennington County, and 593 in our school district. We are also facing a housing shortage. In 2012, a housing study indicated that we needed 90 additional housing units every year for 10 years to meet the demand. To date, we have been added over 500 new housing units. And while we are satisfied with our progress, we still a long ways to go. Most state housing incentive programs are geared for some income restricted projects, which is not what our city needs. Since the Didke expansion, the need for housing geared towards the workforce has become even more apparent. Our city is full of economic opportunities, but the lack of housing and childcare is a barrier for many community people who hope to work in our community. It is imperative that the state act now, not only because these shortages affect daily lives of our children, family, and businesses.
Thank you, Mayor Homer. I think one of the things that Mayor Homer's presentation highlights is the fact that these challenges are different in different communities, and I think also different in the metro versus the rural area. And so what we're hoping to do is to bring that rural perspective to this discussions about both childcare and housing. The final piece that we'd like to talk a little bit about today is actually a new one for us. The Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities has not necessarily ventured into labor and employment issues when it comes to the legislature, but we are experiencing, I think, a critical point with one of the issues that, as we're seeing, impacts communities quite a bit, and that is the issue of duty disability and the amount of public safety personnel who are going out on disability related to PTSD and other injuries. In Minnesota, the number of public safety personnel claiming duty disability continues to increase, and 44% of these claims come from outside of the Twin Cities. So that's one of the things that we want to definitely impress upon you, is that, you know, in discussions about PTSD and police and public safety, Minneapolis has gotten a lot of the attention, and rightfully so, but this is not just a Minneapolis issue. This is impacting cities across the state. From 2019 to 2021, the Public Employee Retirement Association, or PARA, received 666 applications for injuries caused in the line of duty submitted by public safety workers. 80% of those were for PTSD. Last year, PARA initially approved 97% of duty disability claims, and upon review, 100% were subsequently approved. So these all are getting approved. And what that ends up meaning for our cities is that they are responsible for paying the healthcare costs for that employee through age 65. And so as these applications increase, as these claims increase, cities are finding themselves in a position that is really difficult to sustain in terms of continuing to provide these benefits while also replacing that public safety employee. So I'm going to turn it over to Shauna Johnson, the city administrator from Waite Park, who unfortunately has a lot of experience with this particular issue. Shauna?
Thank you, Bradley, and good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Shauna Johnson, and I am the city administrator for the city of Waite Park. And in our city, we currently have 22 police officers, and of those, we have 3 active duty disability claims impacting our community. These 3 claims alone have a total liability for our city of approximately $2.2 million over time. This cost is something that comes out of our general fund and is not something that a city like ours can anticipate or plan for. The state's Public Safety Officer Benefit Fund reimbursement is based on the availability of funds, and with the number of claims increasing exponentially, as Bradley mentioned, cities like Waite Park are left to cover a large majority of the cost. These employee payouts for us are unattainable, and the system is extremely exploitable. Cities like Waite Park have no real opportunity to appeal or challenge these claims without enduring years of costly litigation. Our city is interested in improving the duty disability process, and we believe the current system needs to be critically analyzed to avoid burdening our communities. And I am proud that the CGMC is stepping up to ask for administrative policy reform to ensure that we can continue to provide the benefit to those that it was intended for, and address the challenges with the process for those that are abusing the system.
Thank you, Shauna. In her comments, Shauna mentioned the Public Safety Benefit Fund, which was created actually to reimburse cities and counties for the costs related to providing ongoing health insurance. What we've seen, however, is that that fund since 2010 has been significantly underfunded at $1.36 million per year. This last year in 2022, there were over $10 million worth of claims. And so what that means is 87% of the claims are going unreimbursed by the state and are being passed on to cities and counties. So one of our proposals, in addition to some administrative reforms to the process, is to ensure that that fund is fully funded and that the state is making good on their commitment to cities and counties. With that, I think we'll be able to open it up for questions. Like I said, if you do have a question, raise your hand or indicate so in the chat. Kelly, my colleague, will call on you. You can ask your question and we will do our darndest to answer it. So I will leave it to Kelly, who's monitoring all of this. Kelly?
Any questions? Caroline Cummings. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Caroline Cummings with WCCO here. Sounds like on the duty disability reform, a big part of it is policy changes to limit or maybe have more stringent rules on who can take that disability? If I'm not interpreting that, can you clarify? And also, the governor intends to reintroduce a boost to local government aid designed for public safety. Last year for the supplemental budget, it was about $300 million and, leaves it open-ended. Would that help with this problem, or how do you see that? Do you need more money? I guess what would you want to see on that front to help maybe with the recruitment for those people who are on disability?
Sure, I can take a swing at answering. Maybe we'll take them in turn. The first one in terms of what we're actually looking for in terms of reforms, and then I'll pass it over to Shauna, and then I can address your comment about the LGA and the public safety funds. When it comes to the duty disability process, one of the things that is missing from it is really any participation from the local government that is going to be responsible for paying these. And so what happens is information is sent to para, including some information from a physician. PRA looks at that and then says yes or no, this person is eligible for disability. What is lacking, however, is any context or view from the city perspective or any opportunity for them to weigh in. And so what we're seeing is at the point in which the city is involved in the process is really sometimes after the PRA has made their determination and ends up becoming much more adversarial than perhaps it needs to be, when more information from the city perspective on the front end would be helpful in that process. Shauna, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, thank you, Bradley, and thank you, Caroline, for the question. I think really the other point that I might just want to add is it's really just ensuring that the information that's getting presented to PERA is also being reviewed by an independent medical examiner. So a lot of times in the process now, that information is submitted by an employee, and that information then their medical examinations that they have are submitted, and that's a lot of the times what PER reviews. So there's not always the review process in place by somebody independent to determine whether or not they agree or disagree with that. And in fact, there's nothing really in the process today that requires that whatever your type of medical issue that you may have, that it's actually a doctor that's that has the expertise to be able to handle the, or to be able to make those statements about your medical condition. So I think it's just really making sure that there is due process and that there's input on both sides of that. When you consider the amount of money that cities are required to pay, it just doesn't feel like we have any opportunities at all in the current process to really even give an opportunity to provide feedback.
And then to your second question, Caroline, about the public safety aid that the governor wants to come. I think first off, I would say, let's not conflate this with the regular local government aid program. I know that's how the governor has commonly talked about it. But the LGA program that has supported cities for a number of years is one thing, and additional resources for public safety is another. I think you heard Mayor Holmer talk about one of the great benefits of the current LGA system is that it is flexible and that those dollars can be used for any number of things, including public safety. Certainly, I think our cities would welcome more assistance when it comes with public safety needs, whether it's through the traditional LGA formula and program or through a separate program that targets public safety specifically. Certainly, I think those dollars are targeted at trying to address the recruitment challenges that cities are having and may be able to be targeted towards some of the costs that cities are incurring when it comes to the duty disability issue. But I think that it remains to be seen exactly how those dollars will be targeted, how they'll be distributed. And like I said, I would caution you to conflate those with the regular LGA program, which we're still going to be asking for no matter how much money the governor says he wants to direct toward public safety specifically. Kelly?
Next up is Walker Ornstein from MinPost.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to see if you had any more specifics on the childcare proposals here. Obviously, there's been lots of proposals for childcare, everything from scholarships to CCAP that can run into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Can you just talk about why these are your priorities, specifically more of like the bonding stuff, this little grant program or smaller grant program, so forth, versus some of those other, bigger ticket items that lawmakers often propose?
Yeah, well, that's an excellent question, Walker. And I think, again, that gets to the issue that the nature of the problem is different in different parts of the state. We certainly support all of the big ticket items in terms of the CCAP reimbursement and the scholarships and all of the additional money going into making childcare more affordable. But there are lots of people, many, many interest groups already working on that. Where we thought we could best put our shoulder is to making childcare more accessible in our communities. The line that I typically use is that, in the metro area, you can generally find childcare. It's pretty expensive, but you can find it. But in some of our communities, there's nobody offering it at any price. And so we've really decided as an organization that the best thing that we can bring to the discussion is to help build out the capacity of our childcare system to support the providers that they already are in place and to stand up new providers. Hence, things like investing in additional facilities, investing in the initiative funds who are doing great work to educate new people coming into the childcare space, as well as the DEED program, which has been instrumental in many communities with supplementing community efforts to build out their own childcare infrastructure. And so we've decided that where we can best provide our support for our communities is on the childcare access piece, while there's many, many people working on the affordability piece. Mayor Homer, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. You've worked a lot on this issue.
Well, and there I can just echo the cost of providing, building these facilities and stuff to handle the kids. It is and we have a labor shortage of getting these people in there to work for this, and it just brings a cost out of hand. So there's not one silver bullet, so to speak, or one thing to throw your target at, because it's an overarching thing. It's going to take multiple different ideas to come together to actually make this successful.
Yeah, I think Mayor Homer is exactly right. And that's what's both interesting and frustrating about this issue is that it is so multifaceted, whether you're talking about the childcare workforce, the physical facilities that are needed. It's a very nettlesome issue that's going to take a lot of work and creativity on many people's part. Kelly, what else have we got?
Next is Lori Sturdivant.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Great to see you this morning, and thank you for doing this. Question I have has to do with the status of LGA right now in this state. This is a 50-year-old program that I've followed for a long time. I wonder how you view the move by St. Paul and some other larger municipalities to opt for increases in local option sales taxes, which are being talked about as an alternative to lagging LGA. Do you see that as pulling apart something fundamental about the commitment we've made to each other in this state? And what is your reaction? What will be your reaction to those proposals in this session?
Yeah, no, thank you, Lori, for that question, and Happy New Year to you as well. So, it is a very nettlesome issue when you look at local government aid versus the role that these sales taxes have historically played in these communities. I think it remains to be seen from the new tax chairs how they will approach these. Previous tax chairs, Senator Bach, Senator Skoye, Representative Marquardt, Chair Joachim last year in the property tax division, were all very wary of exactly what you're saying, that the sales taxes become a substitute for LGA, and that by doing these sales taxes, we end up increasing inequities between communities, exactly the kind of inequities that LGA is supposed to even out. And so, we've looked at it as it's, I think, historically been done, that the sales taxes can be a tool which many of our CGMC cities use to help provide projects or infrastructure of regional significance that are serving not only that community, but their broader region when it comes to providing physical facilities, capital projects. LGA so far has, with one exception, never been used to provide operational support to cities. And if the legislature were to go that direction, I think we'd be very concerned about it, because then you do create, again, the haves and the have-nots. And so I think it is restraining the sales taxes to their historical use in terms of providing for capital projects of regional significance. If we can do that, that's okay. If we're looking at creating some operational resources for cities, then you really do make the playing field uneven. Something that the state tried to do away with in the early 70s, as you know, Lori, when LGA came into being. We had this hodgepodge of local sales taxes, and there was really a lot of inequity between communities. And so it would be certainly a bad thing for the state if we went backwards on that commitment. Kelly, what else have we got?
Yeah, next is Grace Dang.
Hi, good morning and thank you all. I'm Grace. I'm the new reporter with the Minnesota Reformer. So I was wondering, particularly in relation to those disability pensions related to PTSD and other injuries. I know the legislative session has just started, but are there any bills that you're looking at or legislators you're working with to create policy for reform of the pension?
Yeah, we are in the process of putting together some legislation. In fact, my next meeting right after this is to review some draft legislation on that very issue. So you will see something hopefully in the next week or two on that. I know this is an issue that a lot of people are interested in. There was a lot of work done last year in terms of a stakeholder group. But I think that what we found is that there needs to be some brighter light shown on some of these processes. And that's the type of legislation that we'll be putting forward and that you'll be seeing soon from us.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none.
Well, very good. We can wrap up. I really do want to thank you all for joining us this morning. You know, you got a quick hit on a lot of our priorities. Certainly, these aren't the only things we're working on. But certainly, if you have other questions about these issues or anything else during the legislative session, please look to us as a resource. We're happy to answer whatever questions you have. We're happy to put you in contact with local elected officials like Mayor Homer and Mayor Jonas and City Administrator Johnson, who have all of the on-the-ground expertise. We really appreciate your interest. We really appreciate your work as journalists at the Capitol. And we're looking forward to a really interesting, fun, robust, loud legislative session that hopefully does great things for the state of Minnesota. Thank you very much.